past few months, legal correspondent David Lesch has covered a variety of topics in his constitutional law series that includes contracts, the legalization of marijuana, and the right to privacy. Today, he concludes the series on the topic of weight discrimination and also talks on some of the legal issues discussed throughout the year. David, as always, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sylvia. Nice to see you again.
Nice to be here.
Well, it's been 3 months of constitutional law. I think it's time to put it to a rest. We're going to end the year with the last of the constitutional law topics, discussing weight discrimination. This is actually my 35th appearance on Open just this year. I probably would have done all 52 if I didn't have to make a living and practice law and try my cases. But in any event, we're going to finish up today discussing weight discrimination, a very important topic, and why it is considered to be a constitutional law issue. Okay. Weight discrimination is on the rise. Statistics say that it's increased at least 66% in the last decade. It's obviously something that we have to look at. 2/3 of Americans are considered to be obese. A typical example of weight discrimination is if somebody's at work and the employer says to the employee, look, I'm going to give you a couple of months to lose some weight. If you don't lose weight, I'm going to have to let you go. Or not getting promotions or raises based on the fact that you are considered to be obese by your employer. These are things that are increasing in our society. We're having more and more of a difficult time to lose weight and to get our weight down, and we are finding in the place of employment that we're losing out to other employees based on our own weight. Also, we see it in other aspects of society. Airplanes that are forcing obese individuals to buy 2 seats. That was on the table for a while, but it's been taken off. But you'll find in other areas those who are considered to be obese are facing a stigma in our society, and there are groups that have been formed and they're not going to take it any longer, and now there are states, the anti-weight discrimination laws that have been enacted in Washington, D.C., in San Francisco, Nevada, Michigan have been trying to get it on the books, but there is no federal weight discrimination act. And the reason is it is a constitutional law issue. Remember, anytime you're dealing with constitutional law, you're weighing the rights of an individual and that person's constitutional rights against society as a whole and society's constitutional rights. Well, let me give you an example of why this would be a constitutional issue involving obesity. Okay. Obesity costs in healthcare at least $100 billion in terms of the states and what states and the federal government have to pay in healthcare costs. Okay. Well, those costs are passed down to the taxpayer. So the states say, hey, we have the right to regulate, foods or things that are being put into the public for consumption, because ultimately obesity leads to diabetes, some forms of cancer, and who foots the bill? But the U.S. government and the states foot the bill in terms of hospital costs, right? So therefore, you as an individual, don't tell me that you have the right, that we do not have the right as a society to regulate certain types of laws that will govern what you can eat. Now, the individual says, but hey, wait a second, okay? That may be true, but I have certain protections as well, right? Okay. It's not as if I'm not trying to lose weight. Genetically, this is who I am. You declare a war on obesity. When you say a war on anything, you're indicating that whatever it is that you're fighting against is a very, very bad thing. Well, certain obese people are very happy with who they are. They're happy with their lives. So why should they be made to suffer by an employer and lose a job or lose a chance to move up in the company just because they're considered to be obese? You, the federal government, owe me an obligation. You have all sorts of discrimination laws on the books, all forms of employment discriminations, gender discrimination laws, age discrimination laws. There's hate crimes and hate laws, which we covered last week, and I also did on my show last night. So why can't you come forth with an act, a weight discrimination act, federal government? Well, that's a good question. And every time a bill is somehow gets through one of the houses, it somehow gets nixed by some of the food and drug associations.
Is that because, as far as weight's concerned, the Weight Discrimination Act is concerned, there's two measures on the scale. You can have people who are extremely skinny or people who are extremely obese or overweight. And what about
those who are too thin? You're saying as well. I mean, there are people who are too thin. They may have a right to say, hey, we're discriminated against too. But we were talking about that off camera. You don't generally have too many thin people who are suggesting that they're being discriminated because they're too thin. I'm sure it happens, but it doesn't happen as often as that person who's employed, let's say, at a health club, and the health club manager says, hey, you're not giving a positive image to the people here who are working out. I'm sorry, I got to let you go. Now that's weight discrimination. Or a hostess at let's say a hostess at a restaurant. Mm-hmm. Well, you're not giving the image we're looking for here. I'm sorry, we have to let you go. Well, that's discrimination. They can't choose. I mean, you say, well, they choose to be obese. Well, people don't choose to be obese. It's a genetic trait many times. They can't help it. Okay, they can do certain things, but you are who you are sometimes. Well, does that mean because you're considered to be obese that you have to buy 2 seats at on an airline? Well, you're saying, well, the person who sits next to you has a constitutional right to be comfortable. Constitutional right to, well, is that a constitutional right? Probably not. So, whenever you're dealing with constitutional law issues, there's no right answer. It's always gray, and you're always weighing the rights of one against the rights of the other. So,
is that why airlines have different policies? I believe it was Southwest who was forcing people pretty much, if it was at the discretion of like the ticket agent or someone off the plane to determine like, okay, I believe this person needs to purchase 2 seats, and they had to purchase 2 seats before they got on the flight.
But they stopped doing that because
yes,
it was a political nightmare. Because a lot of people, if 66% of Americans are considered obese, you have to figure a good amount of them are not going to want to have to purchase 2 times the amount of seats. So it obviously makes sense that a lot of people were not going to go for this type of thing.
If 66% of Americans are considered obese, how is their need for a discrimination law? More than half of the people are in the United States right now are considered obese.
Because there are levels of obesity. Right? Somebody may be 5 or 10 pounds overweight and they're considered to be obese. 66% are considered to be obese. And then what you do is you look at, because you have to understand, you're looking at it from somebody who's 30 years and less. Most people who are 30 years and younger, a lot of times are not considered obese. But above 30, from 30 to 60, if you look around the general population and you walk around, certainly in the Bronx, and you look around, you will see that 2/3 of people would be considered to be overweight and obese. Now, will they be discriminated against at work? Well, probably not, because they're 5 or 10 pounds overweight to be considered to be obese. But we're talking about that very, very heavy person who is let go based only on what they look like in terms of their weight. Okay. That's what we're discussing here. Those are the weight discrimination laws that we're talking about, protecting those individuals. So I went through some of the some of my topics for the year. Okay. So I thought I'd share a few with them just to refresh the viewers. It's been a year, to let you go, let the viewers know what some of the different series that I went through. We started the year off with winter dangers and legal rights. So we started off with everything from heat and hot water, snow and ice, ski accidents. We did carbon monoxide poisoning, mold and mildew, and we got past the winter. We ended up into municipal liability. Mm-hmm. We talked about city lawsuits with respect to subways and falling on a bus, police brutality, false arrests, teacher molestation, accidents while participating in the sport, school violence. We hit that. That took a while. And then we hit something that was very interesting, which I enjoyed. We did a lot of contractual obligations law. I don't know if you remember, you might have hosted a couple of those series. That involved credit card protections, debit cards, miscellaneous consumer laws in small claims court. We had everything from dating and matchmaker contracts, which was something that we covered here. We even hit prenuptial agreements and interfering with somebody else's right to have a contract. We hit so many different things, and interdispensed within all the different series that I did were just other topics that we hit that either I had covered in my show and we discussed it the next day, or just everything else. So I can't wait to start the new year. I got new series ready for you, and I expect you back in January so we can talk about it.